Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Jaya Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jayo Kodani Kai, Maya Poshashi, Kodani Kai, Maya Poshashi. Jaya Kodani Kai, Maya Poshashi, Kodani Kai, Maya Poshashi. Kodani Kai, Jaya Maya Poshashi. Ishkan Guru Vrinda ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Kodani Kai Maya Poshashi ki jai. So reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Even with the building incomplete, many guests were coming, especially to talk with Prabhupada. who particularly spent many hours each day speaking about Krishna consciousness with guests who came to inquire about his movement, or who came only to talk about themselves and their own philosophy. Sometimes he would remark that an individual had wasted his time, but he never stopped anyone from seeing him. One wealthy Hindu man, Mr. Brijatan Mahota, and his wife, a daughter of millionaire R.D. Birla, visited Prabhupada from Calcutta. Srila Prabhupada took care in properly hosting his guests, and he personally received the menu and briefed his disciples on serving Mr. Mahota and his wife. Offering prasadam was an important part of the Vaishnava etiquette. And Srila Prabhupada always stressed that the devotees immediately offer prasadam to visitors. You should always be able to offer water, hot porridge, and eggplant bhaji, fried eggplant, and sweets, Prabhupada said. Even when guests appeared shy, Prabhupada would insist they take a full meal. Mrs. Mohata, even though a member of one of the wealthiest families in India, was satisfied with the simple hospitality Srila Prabhupada and his disciples offered. The room she and her husband stayed in was unfinished. The slate floors hadn't been polished, and construction work was going on all around, and the devotees could only offer them a mattress on the floor with a pillow, yet they appeared to be quite satisfied and appreciative. Bhavananda. Srila Prabhupada introduced us to many of the details of Indian culture at Mayapur. In 1970 in Los Angeles, he asked me to sew sheets together to make coverings for the rug in his room, and then he had gotten down on his hands and knees right next to me, and he had smoothed out the wrinkles in the sheet. So he had us do that same thing in Mayapur, where we put mattresses from one end of the room to the other with bolster pillows against the wall. Now you have white sheet covers, he said, and you change these every day. When Bengali gentlemen visited Srila Prabhupada in his room, they would sit on these mattresses around the edge of the room, their backs against the bolster pillows. It was very aristocratic. The whole mood was that he was the Mahant, the master of the house, the Acharya, but also the aristocratic Bengali gentleman, so that he was re-establishing the old aristocratic mood from the early 1900s and 1920s. It was from Srila Prabhupada's old days with the Mulak family, and it was rapidly dwindling. At that time, you couldn't find a semblance of the old culture anywhere, because all of those families had become degraded and their wealth was gone. Srila Prabhupada ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Is there something to read about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur? It's his appearance day today, isn't it? Yeah. Jai. There's a 3-volume book actually put together by Bhaktivinoda Maharaj. It's the autobiography of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, it's called. Some interesting quotes actually. Okay, well, I'll read from the Bhagavatam just now, and if you find it, then I can. Oh, sorry, okay. And this is the appearance, the disappearance of Shri Purusha. This disappearance. Okay, so this is also the disappearance of Shri Purushottam Das Thakur. Since birth, Purushottam Das was merged in the service of the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu. In Krishna Lila, he was Dama, one of the cowherd boyfriends of Krishna and Balaram. He was the 10th Gopal. He was the son of Sadashiva Kaviraj and grandson of Kamsari Sena. Formerly in Krishna Lila, Sadashiva Kaviraj was Chandravali Gopi and Kamsari Sena was Ratnavali Gopi. Purushottam Das Thakur's son was Kanu Thakur. It is said that just after Kanu Thakur's birth, his mother died. When he was about 12 years old, Sri Nityananda Prabhu took him to his home in Kadadaha. When he was 5 years old, he went to Vrindavan with Janavamat, and upon seeing the ecstatic symptoms of Kanu Thakur, the Goswamis gave him the name Kanu Thakur. Purushottam Das Thakur sometimes lived in Sukha Sagara. All the deities installed by Purushottam Das Thakur were formerly situated in Baladanga Grama. But when the temple was destroyed, the deities were brought to Sukhasagara. When that temple merged in the bed of the Ganges, the deities were brought with Janavamat's deities to Sahabadanga Bedigram. Since that place has also been destroyed, the deities are now situated in the village named Chandu Degrama. Jai. Shri Vaishnava Thakur's ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 16. This is entitled King Chitraketu Meets the Lord. And is it text 10? Text 10. Na hi asyasti priya kaschin. Na hi asyasti priya kaschin. Na priya swaha paro pi va. Na priya swaha paro pi va. Eka savadiyam drashta. Eka savadiyam drashta. Katinam. Is that an I or an O? Katrinam. Katrinam. Guna doshayo. Katrinam guna doshayo. Nahi yav na yasyasti priya kaschin. Na priya swaparo piva. Eka savadiyam drashta. Katrinam gunadoshayo. Yasyasti priya kaschin. Na priya swaparo piva. Eka savadiyam drashta. Katrinam gunadoshayo. Nayayasti priyas kaschin. Paro viva. Eka savadiyam drashta. Katrinam gunadoshayo. Ya kaschin. La priya swaparo piva. Eka savadiyam drashta. Ladies? Nahi yasyasti priya kaschin. Na priya swaparo piva. Eka savadiyam drashta. Katrinam gunadoshayo. Na, he, indeed, asya, to the living entity. Asti, there is. Priya, dear. Kaschit, someone. Na, not. Apriya, not dear. Swaha, own. Para, other. Api, also. Va, or. Eka, the one. Savadiyam, of the varieties of intelligence. Drashta, the seer. Katrinam, of the performers. Gunadoshayo, of right and wrong activities. Translation: for this living entity, no one is dear, nor is anyone unfavorable. He makes no distinction between that which is his own and that which belongs to anyone else. He is the one without a second. In other words, he is not affected by friends and enemies, well-wishers, or mischief mongers. He is only an observer, a witness of the different qualities of men. So this is referring to, this is the child speaking to King Tritiketa. Just wondering if there was a Sanskrit for mischief mongers. You know the Sanskrit for mischief mongers? Okay, well, Prabhupada's put it in anyway. Okay, Pepper by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As explained in the previous verse, the living entity has the same qualities as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has them in minute qualities because he is a small particle, Shukshma. Whereas the Supreme Lord is all-pervading and great. For the Supreme Lord, there are no friends, enemies, or relatives. He is completely free from all the disqualifications of ignorance that characterize the conditioned souls. On the other hand, he is extremely kind and favorable to his devotees, and he is not at all satisfied with persons who are envious of his devotees. As the Lord himself confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Samoham Sarvabhuteshu Name Dveshu Stina Priya Ye Bhajanti Tumam Bhaktya Maiteshu Chapyaham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. The Supreme Lord has no enemy or friend, but he is inclined toward a devotee who always engages in his devotional service. Similarly, elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, 16:19, the Lord says, Tanaham dvishta kruran samsareshu naradamam shipya yajasram asubhan asuras eva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. The Lord is extremely antagonistic toward those who are envious of his devotees. To protect his devotees, the Lord sometimes has to kill their enemies. For example, to protect Prahlad Maharaj, the Lord had to kill his enemy, Hiranyakashipu, although Hiranyakashipu attained salvation because of being killed by the Lord. Since the Lord is the witness of everyone's activities, he witnesses the actions of the enemies of his devotees, and he is inclined to punish them. In other cases, however, he simply witnesses what the living entities do and gives the results of one's sinful or pious actions. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakarya Chakshuran Meditam Jena Tasmat Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swabhadantika Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Paritanam Bhavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So, Srila Prabhupada's referring to mischief mongers. The translation is referring to that. And then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada goes a little bit further than just a mischief monger, and he talks about those who are demoniac. So And he defines one who's demoniac as one who acts inimically towards his devotee, which is interesting, isn't it? Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest amongst men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence and into various demoniac species. The Lord is extremely antagonistic toward those who are envious of his devotees. So I guess envious would be, we tend to see, well, when I first heard of envious, I was thinking in terms of, the devotee drives past in a big red car and another person looks at it and thinks, I wish I had a big red car like that. That's like the general usage of the word envious. But here, Srila Prabhupada is using the word envious in a different way. Envious in the sense that they are inimical. And just as the Lord is antagonistic, yatam mam prapadyante, so he is reacting to one who is antagonistic. So antagonistic means with ill intent, to do harm, to approach the devotee with the intention of doing harm, with a pre-plan, not an accident. The devotee could say afterward, or somebody who's harmed a devotee could say afterward, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. It was an accident. I don't know what happened. I just found myself with this gun in my hand, and before I knew it, I'd pulled the trigger." So when someone is envious, it's calculated and it's with intention. It's planned. There's an agenda, and the intention is to cause harm. So that's antagonistic. So that type of approach to a devotee, unfortunately, puts him in a very precarious situation where the Lord is extremely antagonistic toward that person. And when the Lord is extremely something, then that's something we have to be very careful about, because anything that's extreme with the Lord is very extreme. So it has so much more potency. So if the Lord becomes extremely antagonistic, then that's a very dangerous situation for the person who is envious of the devotee. And then Srila Prabhupada goes on to really clarify what extremely antagonistic means. It means to kill the enemy. Or he may kill the enemy's chances of taking up devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Although Hiranyakashipu had attained salvation because he was being killed by the Lord. So Hiranyakashipu, by the mercy of Prahlad Maharaj, and of course there's a whole leela there that Hiranyakashipu was actually a doorkeeper, and when he went into the lap of Lord Nrsingadev, he remembered his swarup, and as his torso was being bifurcated, he didn't feel any pain. In fact, he was feeling very blissful to be chosen to be engaged in a pastime with Lord Nrsingadev. So that's actually an exception. Generally, when the Lord becomes very angry, when someone's trying to harm his devotee, then the situation is very dangerous for the envious person. Since the Lord is the witness of everyone's activities, he witnesses the actions of the enemies of his devotees, and he is inclined to punish them. In other cases, however, he simply witnesses what the living entities do and gives the results of their sinful or pious actions. So that's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes he directly steps in to punish them, and sometimes he just witnesses what's going on and allows them to get the results of their sinful or pious actions. So we know that Yamaraj is in charge of giving the reactions for the good and the bad for the living entity. But Yamaraj is only able to do that because the Supersoul in the heart is aware of everything that's going on and is able to enlighten Yamaraj so that he can make a proper judgment. Just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he could judge whether the person was innocent or guilty practically immediately because he was so connected to the Lord. And he could do a case that would take like 3 hours in 10 minutes, immediately just understand. And he dealt with everyone in such a way that they felt that this was fair, that the guilty persons knew that they were guilty and they accepted the punishment, and the innocent ones were freed of any sentence. So that's how the system works. The devotee that's very pure in heart, he's in contact with the Lord, and the Lord is able to tell them, unless, of course, the Lord decides he wants to punish them directly himself, and then rather than going through Yamaraj, he can directly intervene. There was once a devotee, and he stole from Srila Prabhupada, and he ran away. And a few months later, the devotee turned up again, and he came into the temple room, and he was dragging himself across the floor to go up to pay his obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada, someone sent to Srila Prabhupada, "Oh, look, that's that devotee that ran away with some money." And Prabhupada said, "Yes, I forgave him, but Krishna didn't." And he had one arm missing and one leg missing, because he took and he ran. So therefore Krishna decided, okay, I'm going to get involved here. And he directly gave him a reaction. So Krishna can do that if he wants. So best to be very careful. Rupa Goswami is explaining that sometimes we may find it hard to appreciate devotees for whatever reason. So Krishnati Yajagirita Manushadareta, then we can offer them respect in the manner, in the mind. And for other devotees that are Dikshasti Pranatibhasham, we can offer our pranams to the devotee that's initiated and is fully engaged in worshipping the deity. And then to that devotee whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others, to him we can open our hearts completely. So Rupa Goswami is advising, show everyone respect, but show some more respect than others. But don't show anyone disrespect. So that can be difficult to do sometimes. And but if not, then we have to be careful, because we could become disrespectful, envious, and we could become mischief mongers. So the Lord witnesses the actions of the enemies of his devotees. So we've just been reading about Mr. N. And Mr. N eventually dies, and Mrs. N later on in this saga that's going on in Bombay with Srila Prabhupada, she breaks down and she starts crying to Srila Prabhupada, and she realizes it's because of the antagonism that's been there. And there was a similar event. There was one temple down south, and there was a man who was very inimical, and he tried to stop the devotees from building a road into the temple. And one day he was walking, and he fell into a verse. He fell into a ditch, which was only very shallow, just a couple of feet deep, and immediately he died outright. And his wife understood right away that that was a reaction. There was a case also where there was a Harinam. This was in Srila Prabhupada's time. And there was one man being very antagonistic to the Harinam party. He was kicking the devotees and pulling the lady's hair. And then a bus came up, and the bus just touched him. As it touched him, he just died immediately. And they told Srila Prabhupada, and he said that was Balaram's club. Confirmed. She only does that when I make a very profound statement. Shishi Kornitai Mai Poshashi Ki Jai. Shi Tulsinath Maharaj Ki Jai. Shi Girid Harilal Ki Jai. Shi Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. Any questions or comments? Pip.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you. Maybe I'm playing a little bit the devil's advocate here, but I'm wondering if these demons that Krishna killed got salvation in the end, then like what's to stop someone from just being a demon, knowing that these demons got salvation?
Yeah, if Krishna's around, then then you can be a demon. But if he's not around, he says, I perpetually cast into demoniac species of life. So it could be a long time. It's quite a while before Krishna appears. There's 1,000 cycles of the yugas before Krishna will appear again. So you're going to have to wait for 1,000 Kali Yugas, plus 1,000 Satya Yugas, 1,000 Treta Yugas, 1,000 Dwapara Yugas, and then you get your chance to be offensive to Krishna and get your head chopped off. Meanwhile, for a whole day, you've been on a grand tour of the hellish planets. And it seems the living entity is referred to as Nitya Bada, because Nitya means eternal, because it's so long that he spends in the material world before he gets a chance for salvation, that it may as well just be considered forever, you know. So not a good policy. Reassuring in one sense that one way or the other Krishna will get you, but we'd sooner take the easy route and the faster route, and be favorable toward Krishna's will and compliant with him. It's interesting also, there's a song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he's saying, even the demons have attained salvation, but this Bhaktivinoda still remains in worldly existence. But he's being very humble there. He's not asking us to try and follow that policy. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, we understand Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha and Jagai Madai, they're the same personalities that are coming from the spiritual world directly. Are the other demons that Krishna comes into contact with, are they coming from the spiritual world, or are they also...
No, in fact, Srila Prabhupada, there's one purport where Srila Prabhupada is talking about Shishupal, and there's a Shishupal who's killed, and his soul goes into the body of Krishna. But that's not always the case with the Shishupals. Sometimes they just are demons, and sometimes they're devotees playing the parts of demons, you know. So it's not necessarily the same. And generally most aren't. And most demons aren't that powerful either. That's why Krishna gets his devotees to play the parts of the demons, because they can play demons better than the demons can. Because they've got more Shakti, more focus, more attention. Whereas the demons are more lazy and have less devotion. Even to be a good demon, you need devotion. You need focus, concentration, austerity. Otherwise, you don't amount to very much. You know. There's 4 types of people that don't take to devotional service, and one is the mudha. He's the one that's grossly ignorant. He's just a grosso, and so the mudhas, which is generally what most people are. Just gross out. Then there's Naradharmas. Naradharmas are the sophisticated sense enjoyers. And then there's Mayaprita Jnana, the ones who are intelligent, but it's been stolen by illusion. And then there's the Asuram Bhavam Ashrita, the Asuric demoniac leaders, and they're very kind of overbearing and overpowering others around them to gain control. So the worst of the 4 is the Asuric one, the one that's taken to that nature of just being very conquering and dictating to those around him, you know, really trying to impose his control over them. So they're especially in an awkward situation. And because they're small-time demons, then Krishna doesn't get involved. So unless they directly come in contact with his devotees and harm his devotees, then he witnesses the living entities and gives the results of their sinful and their pious actions. So even though the person may be demoniac, but he may also be doing some pious activities. That's explained in the 16th chapter. I have so much wealth, I've given so much away in charity, I will do this, I will do that, I will kill him because he's getting in my way. I have my plan, what I would like to do. I'm the Lord of all I see. I'm the only enjoyer. I'm the most happy. And he is my enemy, and I've killed him. And I'm going to kill him tomorrow. And it's interesting how the demoniac nature works, because the demon doesn't believe that there's a God. So he proves that by killing people. Because he's like, well, where was God? He couldn't stop me. He's thinking, if there was a God, he would have stopped me. He didn't stop me. I've killed this one, I've killed that one, and therefore, if there's no God, then maybe I should just take the seat, at least for as long as I'm here, and I'll be the God, which is what the false ego is, really. The false ego is, you don't accept the Krishna as God, and someone's going to have to be the enjoyer and the controller. So I guess it may as well be me then. That's the false ego. That's the extreme of the false ego, if you take it to its fullest extent. So yeah, not a good policy. And the demon also, because the demon is in the mode of ignorance, and the pleasure that the demon experiences is actually considered to be suffering in the beginning and then suffering in the end. So the demon, he thinks, we were up in one of these little towns, I think it was Fraserburgh, and there was a group of really, really rich people, and they were on this table, and they were all drunk, and they were giving me these really big donations, and saying rude things to me, and but I didn't mind because they were giving me big donations, and they bought my hat off me for £50, and then giving me a hat back later on. And they'd come up to shoot grouse, and there was no grouse to shoot, so they'd hired, I don't know how you do it. They must have got hold of a farmer to fill up a van with grouse and open the back of them, and as the grouse, they were grouse killing the grouse. As the grouse were flying out, they were just shooting them. So, so that they spent a lot of money to do that, and that was them having some fun on their holidays. So that's not really enjoyment, is it? It's like it's suffering to start with, and it's even more suffering in the end, the reaction they get. Or watching a bull, sitting there eating popcorn and watch what they do, to the bull in some countries for so-called sport. So this is the demoniac, and there's no pleasure there, even in the beginning, and so the demoniac person. This policy is not a good one, because you adopt a way of life which is actually very miserable. Whereas a person who's a deva, he may want to enjoy himself, but he is aware that God exists, and he's prepared to show him respect. And although he wants some enjoyment for himself, it's only in relation to God that he wants to do that. There you go. So there's a few kings that are referred to in the Bhagavatam. Swayambhuva Manu, and it said that he had everything. He had all the opulence and all the sense gratification, but he enjoyed it all in a mood of detachment. He was aware all the time that this was by the grace of God that he received all this opulence, and he was able to stay Krishna conscious while at the same time having all this opulent sense gratification around him at the same time. So then that's enjoyment, where it's in the mode of goodness. So there's no reaction for that type of enjoyment. And it's like if you enjoy helping people, and you feel very satisfied when you've helped somebody. So that's an enjoyment in the mode of goodness, and you don't get any reaction for it. You just get good. Well, you get a reaction. You get a good reaction for it. You get pious credit, sukriti. And one that has sukriti is able to understand Krishna consciousness. If a person's very sinful and demoniac, then it's very hard for him to assimilate the information in the books. For us, we can read the books and it makes perfect sense. But if a person is very demoniac, then he can't process it and really connect with the philosophy. And that's why sometimes initially there's a gyata sukriti, is that we engage the person unknowingly in pious activity. And when he attains a certain level of piety, then by that purity, he's able to appreciate some aspect of Krishna consciousness and implement it. So if we have an attraction for the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and we have an enthusiasm to want to practice that, then it means there's already a certain level of purity there in the heart. Of course, in Kali Yuga, we have the demon and the devotee in the same body. So one side of the mind is the devotee, On one side of the mind is the demon. And so there's a fight going on. And until we get to the point of nishta, where we get free of these unwanted things and we become fixed, then we remain karnishta. And kar means without, and nishta means fixed. So karnishta means unsteady. One day you like doing it, the next day you don't like doing it. One day this is really good, the next day it's really bad. Or the next day, what was really bad is really good, something that you didn't like doing for Krishna. Suddenly now you're thinking, why didn't I like doing this for Krishna? This is amazing. So that's karnishta. And the kanishta renders 6 forms of unsteady devotional service, which is described in the Madhurya Kandamani by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Vishaya Sagara, fighting with sense enjoyment. Taranga Ranjani, enjoying the facility that comes when you practice devotional service. Like you start becoming clean and healthy, and you learn how to sing and dance nicely, and people are attracted to you. And so you think, actually, I'm pretty cool. So that's Taranga Ranjani. That causes unsteady devotional service. Because you're starting to enjoy it for yourself. It's not for Krishna anymore. It's starting to become for you, you know. So that's another form. And then there's, anyway, there's 6 different mental vacillation and utsamai, false confidence, that you've been a devotee for 30 minutes and 29 seconds. And you're thinking, wow, I'm going to be initiating next week. And you think you've got it down, you know, I've worked it out. This Krishna consciousness is dead easy. That's utsamai, falsely confident. So these are the obstacles in the path as we progress, and as the heart becomes purified of these demoniac tendencies, and we start to become fixed, then we start to experience some ruchi, some taste, and then our devotional service starts to become spontaneous. We don't have to get dragged out of our bed anymore by a tractor at 4 o'clock in the morning. We spring out of the bed and yay, another day to serve Krishna, Hari Bol. Then we're starting to get some ruchi, some taste. And then our practice of Krishna consciousness, instead of taking energy from us, they start to give us energy as we're chanting. We were just reading last night in the Japa Sangha that there's a certain point where the chanting actuates itself, where you're not trying to chant anymore, but the chanting is just constantly on your lips. The holy name is on your lips all the time. You go asleep and you're chanting, and you wake up and the holy name is on your tongue when you wake, and you realize you've been chanting all night while you were asleep. So that's a stage to aspire for, to get to the stage where our chanting becomes constant. And that's why Lord Chaitanya is saying, be tolerant, consider yourself lower than the straw in the street. Be ready to offer all respect to others and look for no respect for yourself. This is like the initial qualifying stages of getting this constant chanting. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. The goal is to chant continually, constant chanting. That can only happen when the heart is pure, when there's no longer any offense. And although there's no offense for mentally thinking bad of somebody or thinking of bad things, that manifests on the gross platform in the loss of enthusiasm. We lose our enthusiasm. So we don't get a reaction for thinking bad things, but we lose our enthusiasm. And if you lose your enthusiasm to practice Krishna consciousness, then it means that when you're performing some devotional activity, you're not going to get the full benefit of doing it, because you're not doing it with a devotion and enthusiasm. It's actually in Gayatri, the enthusiasm word is prayojayat, and prayojayat is like the prayojana. It's the goal, and it's this enthusiasm, which is really where the taste is. That's really where the devotion is. If you're doing something with enthusiasm, then you can say to that degree there's devotion. And to the degree that you're doing something unenthusiastically, to that degree there's no devotion. So, and you're completely in charge of how much you want to be enthusiastic. You can decide. You could say, well, I would have been enthusiastic if it had been a sunny day today. I would have been enthusiastic, but the weather is so bad, so therefore you can't blame me. I don't feel enthusiastic. But you've chosen not to be enthusiastic. You've used that as an excuse, that the weather They say the weather is the grossest manifestation of the modes of material nature, and we're trying to transcend the modes of material nature. So if you're affected by the weather, then that's like the first obstacle. But if it's raining and you're still happy and enthusiastic to practice Krishna consciousness and devotional service, then you're starting to come to the stage where it's starting to become devotional service because it's done with enthusiasm. Any questions or comments? So it's interesting, isn't it, Prabhupada saying extremely antagonistic toward those who are envious of his devotees. Kind of scary, really. Extremely antagonistic. Anyway, ultimately, whether one way or the other, everyone gets their reactions. But and that's also interesting that although Krishna is he's not partial. He loves everybody. But they say that a father has 10 sons, and he loves all 10 of his sons. They're his sons, so how can he not love them? But he only trusts one of them. So trusting is like an advanced level of loving. So we don't just want the Lord to love us like everybody else, but we'd like him to trust us. And we can earn that trust by showing respect to him and his devotees. Jai. Any questions? No? Haribo Prabhu. Where are you from? Oh, you're just here for a few days? Okay. And you go to the ISKCON temple there? Yeah. Where are the deities in Pune? Where are the deities? In the temple? Yeah. Oh, Radha Krishna. Nice. Jai ISKCON Guru in the Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Shishi Kodanatai Mai Pashashi Ki. Jai. All of you Ki. Jai.